Hi, I'm Peter Littlejohn, Maizex seed dealer in Elgin County. We're here at the test plot just west of Wallistown. It's a small 10-acre field, sandy loam farm. We split it in half every year and we do corn and beans. We've got about a dozen varieties of corn here and around 10 varieties of beans. We try at our own farm plant just about everything we can so that we can get a good understanding of how each variety or each hybrid performs in this area. This corn was planted May 13th. Beans were planted the 21st of May in really good conditions. We do a little bit of tillage and then plant right into it. If you're at all interested in any of these products, feel free to come here, take a look, peel some ears back, count some pods, or contact me. Sorry we have to come to you virtual due to COVID this year, but hopefully we can get back to some normalcies here in the near future. Thanks for watching.
I'm standing in front of 3690 DBR. So this is a 2875 heat unit corn 96 day. 3690 is a strong, steady hybrid. It's got consistent ears across yield environments. It's got solid seedling vigor early on and average dry down. It's a great hybrid to check out for your farm this fall.
It's Chuck Belanger here with Maizex Seeds, market development agronomist for Western Ontario. We're at Peter Littlejohn's site, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a trial that we've been doing for the last 4 years, 2 inches versus 3 inches planting depth. The last 4 years have been pretty interesting. The previous 3 to this year, we saw a very consistent increase in yield, increase in population at planting at 3 inches versus 2 inches. So the idea behind planting a little bit deeper is to allow the plant to all emerge at the same time. So try to emerge within 48 hours of each other. There was some data by Peter Johnson a few years ago that showed that there was a significant decrease in yield potential if you delayed your emergence amongst plants further than 48 hours. So the last 3 years we saw a good increase in population, a good increase in yield, but this year may be a little bit different. Planting date was a lot earlier this year in some cases, so we had some April 25th, 26th, 27th planting on some clay loam soils and maybe even some sand soils. And in those instances there, especially on the clay and clay loam, the emergence was not very good on the 3 inches, which I think a lot of you would agree with, that when we first started this, I was told by a few of you that there's no way that you'd plant 3 inches in clay soils, knowing that clay soils after a rain could seal up pretty heavily. So you want that out of the ground as soon as possible. But at this site here, for instance, I've taken the time and I've peeled back the ears. I've measured out 17 feet 5 inches and did population. So the 3 inch population was 31,000. And on the 2 inch, we were about 29,500 plants. What was interesting though is, so on my left is the 2 inch planting, and on my right is the 3 inch planting. What we found on the 2 inch planting is that we're seeing a few more runts popping up. So later emerged plants that might have, for some reason, got stuck and they didn't come out, but they came out later. And here's a good example of that. The first plant, which I peeled back, was a runt. And then after that, they're pretty consistent, but you're going to see 4 plants or 4 cobs like this, where on the 3 inch side, we only found 2 runts in this stretch of 17 feet 5 inches. 3 inch was very, very consistent. As you can see, as we walk back, they're pretty consistent in size. Ear placement seems to be consistent on the 3 inches versus the 2 inches, a little bit more sporadic. And in fact, the ear placement's a little bit lower on the 2 inches versus the 3 inches. But tip fill on both were very well. We're seeing a little bit of feeding from some western bean cutworm that kind of came in, probably took a few bites and moved on, but not seeing any gibberella whatsoever. But as we go along, you know, I'll kind of point out some of the runt plants. Like on the 3 inch, it's hard to find them. You saw it on the 2 inch back there. There's one here. I wouldn't call this a runt. It is a late emerger. You can tell by the stalk, but it's definitely not the same kernel length as the consistent length of the row here. Most of the lengths on these is about 30, anywhere from 32 to 38. I've got one somewhere along here that's 40 long. And on the 3-inch side, you know, we're seeing more consistently 31 long and 16 round. Whereas I didn't mention the round on the 2-inch. The average on the round of all these plants was 15.9. So the yield is going to be pretty consistent here. I think this is going to be a site where we might see an increase in yield on the 3 inches versus the 2-inch. But, you know, the combine will tell the story at the end.
I'm standing in front of MZ4040 DBR. We also have the Smart Stacks version, which is MZ4049 SMX. So these are newer 100-day 3000 heat unit hybrids. They have big girthy ears, 18 to 22 kernels around. Their husks blow open, which aids in dry down. They've got a nice compact plant structure, so less trash at harvest, and they really can flex the ear. So if you've got lower population, that kind of thing. So take a look at this excellent top-end yield potential 100-day hybrid. Here at Littlejohn's and many other sites across the province, we're evaluating our hybrids for ear mold and dawn. You can see here we've got some different hybrids that we've been looking at. Greg, can you tell us what we've been doing?
Right. So, Laura, we can never trust natural infection to allow us to evaluate hybrids. We have to artificially inoculate the hybrids with the spores so that we can get a real good look at them. So that's what we have here. We put the spore solution in here, and right about silking time, we inject the solution into the silk channel. Or in some cases, we just take the same spore solution and just spray it on the silks. Again, when the silks are fresh and green, right in around R1, to try to give us two different ways of pressuring the hybrid into some sort of mold reaction. So yeah, you've brought 3 different hybrids out here, Laura. We can see clearly a hybrid that's getting fairly well infected, one that has a little bit on the end, and one that looks pretty clean. That's what we're all about, is trying to, before the next big ear mold problem year, is being able to sort out the hybrids by doing inoculations in every year. What are you seeing when you were out yield tour wise here in Elgin County? What are you seeing for mold pressure?
Throughout the yield tour, we weren't really finding any ear molds, except maybe the odd case where Western bean cutworm feeding was evident. In the past week, I've been seeing a little bit more ear mold move in in some areas, which we'll see what the weather brings over the next few weeks to see how that develops.
Right, and I guess that gets to the point of, if you only evaluate your hybrids in sort of here a bit, there a bit, depending on what the weather is, depending on whether they had natural infection, you don't really get the story told. You really need to be able to artificially inoculate and challenge each hybrid in your lineup to get that full confidence as to whether it's at that end of the table or this end of the table.
Thanks, Greg.
You bet.
I'm here in front of MZ4410 TRE. So it's a new Tricepta hybrid. Tricepta hybrids provide excellent above ground insect control for Western bean cutworm. 4410 has big yield potential. Watchouts are it's got a late flower and a slower dry down. So this is a great option if you're struggling with Western bean cutworm.
Hi, Greg Stewart here at Littlejohn's agronomy site. One of the key questions we had this spring was, if you had low populations, should you pull back on your nitrogen a little bit? So we have here an opportunity to try to answer that question. In front of me, I've got MZ4577 SMX, but at about 24,000 final stand. And then we imposed a bunch of different nitrogen rates to try to get a feel for, well, if you were unfortunate enough that your emergence was not great and you had, say, a 24,000 plants per acre stand, would you have pulled back nitrogen a little bit because the demand for nitrogen in those lower stands is less? And you know, a fair bit of discussion about that. I think it became sort of multi-factors that started getting layered on top of each other. That is, we had a spring where it was relatively dry, certainly June and into July was pretty dry. And then we had soil nitrate tests that were showing quite elevated numbers. And then if you added on top of that a low population and perhaps expectations of a little bit lower yield, those three factors together would perhaps give you confidence that you'd pull back nitrogen from a 180 to a 150 or a 170 to a 140. So I'm standing in front of 24,000. We've peeled it back. So obviously at this low density, we're throwing big ears. Yield is going to be decent, but we've got 3 different end rates with the low density and 3 different end rates with the high density. And this fall, we'll be able to get a bit of a discussion going on, was it the right call to pull back end rates if those 3 factors lined up for you? Lower plant stand, low rainfall in June, and high soil nitrate test. Stay tuned for this one.
I'm here in front of MZ 4577 SMX. This is 105-day Smart Stacks, 3150 heat units. You can see here 4577 unzips really nicely to aid in dry down. You want to beware if you've got a lot of history of bird damage. 4577 is a great choice if you've got variable yield environments, as it performs steadily across those environments. Check out 4577's yield results this fall and see if you've got a place for it on your farm.
Well guys, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you this fall with the harvest results.
Be sure to keep following on our virtual plot tour site, which you can find on Maizex.com. Thanks and have a good day.